Welcome to Hi-Fi Turtle, the #1 reptile adjacent hi-fi page on the internet, bringing the audiophile out of their shell. Today I'm talking about a wireless headphone from French manufacturer Focal. This is their Bathys headphone. Bathys. Very fancy sounding. I think Focal sometimes is playing a joke on the Americans or just non-French native speakers because it's spelled B-A-T-H-Y-S, and I have to say the first time I saw it, I definitely said Bathys, but Bathys, if you want to be sophisticated and not laughed at by the French. Focal, of course, more so known for their speakers. They have moved into headphones in the last several years, and I have to say that the Focal headphones have always been a highlight to me. I have owned several pairs of Focal headphones myself, and now breaking into the very highly competitive wireless space with a $699 headphone. This puts it at a very premium price range versus the more mainstream competitors such as Apple, Beats, Sony, and Bose. So for that premium price, are we just getting that fancy French name, or are we getting something that can really compete and even go above the premium priced options from those major tech companies? Before we continue, I want to ask you to please hit that thumbs up, like this video, subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel grow. There are links in the description to help support the channel so I can continue to bring you great content like this. So when Focal first sent me the Bathys to review, I was honestly prepared for disappointment. I had a hard time wrapping my head around a $700 pair of wireless headphones that are supposed to compete with the Apple AirPod Maxes, the Bose Quiet Comforts, the Sony MX1000 X5, I believe is the latest models. But all of those are multiples of percentages cheaper than the Bathys. So I really needed to be blown away, not only on the sound, but also the integration and usage, because that's where I often find that these old school hi-fi companies really fall short. They're really great at producing amazing sounding products, but they're really not hip with the times. They don't know how to program active noise cancellation. They don't know how to integrate things. They don't know how to make a UI experience great for the user or make the app intuitive to where you want to use it. You want to use these, and paired with the great sound of them is an absolute home run for the consumer. So I guess first and foremost, we should talk about the user experience and the app experience, because this is a smart device beyond just being a hi-fi device. And of course, this does support all the Bluetooth codecs, aptX, Bluetooth 5.1 multi-port. It also has a dedicated button for your choice of voice assistant. So whether that's the Google Assistant, Siri, or Amazon Alexa, you can set that up in the app to be summoned when you press a button on the Bathys. There are very basic controls on the headphones as well. We don't have the touchscreen or slider side ear cups like we see in some other headphones. There are physical buttons, which I actually quite like. Of course, you have the volume rocker. In between that is the select button that can pick up calls, pause your music, advance the track, go back a track, and then on the other side of the headphone we have the singular button that has the option for the removal of the active noise canceling when you need to talk to somebody, and then you can just pop it right back on. In addition to the buttons, we actually have two physical inputs. We have a 3.5mm aux as well as a USB-C input, which is also used for charging. Both of these cables are included with the Bathys, which is a nice, of course, inclusion with also the additional carrying case. Now, the 3.5mm and the USB-C, if you want to use for music, there's the third position of the physical on-off switch, which is DAC mode, digital to analog converter. This option offers a superior listening experience over the compression of Bluetooth. And again, regardless of if it is that improved high quality Bluetooth of aptX, it still is inferior, unfortunately, to the sound quality of the good old-fashioned wire. There are some compromises, unfortunately, that have to be made when connecting this way. First and foremost is the ability to use the physical buttons to accept calls on the Bathys. The other is to be able to adjust the EQ and the sound personalization or other features and settings within the Name Focal app. And of course, maybe the most significant compromise to be able to get into this mode is the fact that you have to attach a wire to your once wireless headphones. So again, while this is a fantastic option if you're going to be stationary in a specific place for a long time and not on the move, well, if you want to have that wireless availability, then unfortunately you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit of that sound quality, but also gain several features. So turning over into the Focal and Name app, once we connect the Bluetooth to the Bathys, we can then select the device. We can change all sorts of different customizations in here. It's pretty straightforward. There is the lights, the noise personalization, the sound personalization that comes after you do an initial sound test to make that personalization possible through an application called Mimi. Then we have EQ that can be adjusted however you like. There are some presets, including a Harman target curve that is available. I do think the description here is a little funny where it says it will make mids, basses, and high louder, which to me just sounds like it's going to make the entirety of the music louder, but that's kind of beyond this point. And also the ability to change the noise cancellation in 3 different levels, from transparent to absolute silence. Pretty intuitive here, not a whole lot of selections and different changes or any confusion that can really go on here. I will say that the voice assistant that I mentioned earlier has to be adjusted using the settings gear in the upper right hand corner and then selecting which voice assistant you want to use. I'm not sure why it's there and not just in this main menu, but that's where that is if you're looking for it. Going into the Mimi hearing test, this is where the sound personalization comes into play. So there's this hearing test. They play a series of beeps at different frequencies. You're supposed to indicate when you hear such beeps over some white noise in the background, and that gives a personalized profile of your ability to hear at different frequencies, and then makes adjustments to essentially restore the frequencies that you may have lost some hearing for over the years. I think this is pretty cool. I did the test several times. I think that there are some negatives to this that aren't, of course, Focal and Name's fault, but there are some weird nuances with using this Mimi software in the application itself. After performing the test, there's really not an indication of what your hearing actually looks like. Yes, it gives you this graph that shows where your hearing is lost, but there's absolutely no values displayed at all to understand what frequencies you're missing and by how much. And then the personalization itself, it has a slider and on and off, but I'm not really sure how it's adjusting and how it matches up to this graph. And if you export the raw data, which is available if you make an account with Mimi, I looked at my raw data and I don't really see the correlation that the graph in the Focal app is showing me, where it's this steady taper over the course of from low to high frequencies, more so that there's almost no difference between the lowest frequency and the highest frequency from the raw data that I can see in my hearing test. I do have a slight dip around 4,000 kilohertz, but then again, the test is only from 3,000 to 6,500 kilohertz essentially. So I'm not sure how accurate all of this is. Now, there is the ability to cut this on and off and test the different intensity of the restoration within the app, which I appreciate very much so. Being able to test not only with the demo track that is built into the app, but you can play any sort of music outside of the app, cut this on and off while on Bluetooth, and see what you prefer to have as your personalized sound profile. Now, I felt that at times I liked it, at times I didn't. I kept it more so on the lower side as far as the intensity. Between 20 and 35% is where I found the sweet spot. But again, I found myself questioning how much personalization this was and what I wouldn't do to just go into the EQ and change that ever so slightly at certain frequency bands, and if I would notice such difference. I will say that it kind of just adds a little bit more sharpness into the upper mid-range and lower treble, I feel like, but at times, again, there was some music where I preferred not to have that personalization on at all. Your mileage, of course, is going to vary here, but I do appreciate all these options and features that are part of the app, and I never had a negative experience using the app or using the headphones in Bluetooth mode, using them pretty much as they're intended to be, as that travel headphone. Another kind of downside here is that while in the DAC mode with a wired connection, you can't make any on-the-fly changes in the app. So while the app does actually preserve your settings on the headphone prior to connection to a wired connection, you can't change them on the fly. Moving on to the look and feel of the Bathys, I really like this design. This is the original black and silver. There is a more sand dune color, aptly named, of course. The grille is a little polarizing. This is definitely very triggering to those with trypophobia, I'm sure. But I personally like the design and look of this grille. I always turn the LEDs off because personally I don't like the LEDs. The band itself I wish it was wider. Comparatively to Focal headphones that I've owned in the past, like the Elex and the Clear, this band is probably maybe 75% the size of those particular headphones. And I did feel like after an extensive amount of listening time, we're talking 6+ hours, yes, this will start to weigh on your head. So I wish the band was a little wider to distribute that pressure a little nicer. When you're at home, you could do something with an additional like clamp or something like that to relieve some pressure, or just take more breaks. The leather pads are very supple and nice, although I do feel like at sometimes they can become a little hot on your head, but I do really like the pivoting cups, so it's really easy to just throw it over your neck when you're out and about. So with all that being said, what about the primary function of any pair of headphones, the sound? And with a wireless pair of headphones, how's that noise canceling doing? Well, I have to say the noise canceling on the Bathys is one of the absolute best I have ever encountered. This is where I was really afraid Focal would drop the ball. This is amazing. This is better than some Apple products. And it doesn't make sense to me because Apple's a $3 trillion company and Focal, well, I'm pretty sure they're pretty far off their first trillion, but just unbelievably good noise canceling. I will say that in extremely quiet areas, you can hear a little bit of hiss, a little bit of kind of almost like wind noise, even with the most silent option of noise canceling. But in a moderately busy or loud place, like an office even, where again, that's probably a quieter place than an airport or a commute or anywhere else, that you can't notice at all, and it blocks out pretty much everything. It's incredible how much noise reduction that these are capable of. Now in transparent mode, I feel like it almost artificially pumps in some outside noise through the drivers themselves, but I honestly almost never use these in the non-noise canceling, and if someone comes to talk to me, I just take the headphones off. I'm not going to turn on transparent mode, continue to listen to some music and have this person talk to me. I'm going to take them off and put them around my neck for a brief minute. Sound-wise, these are very comparable to my Focal Clear OGs that I own for quite some time. And I almost want to say that Focal is using the exact same driver as the Clear OG in the Bathys. It is a 40mm aluminum magnesium driver, which is the same that you saw on both the Clear and the Elir from the first generation of Focal headphones. Bass is extraordinarily punchy, as you come to expect from a Focal sound. The instrument separation is spectacular, with the distinction between drum bass and bass guitar being some of the best I've ever heard out of any pair of headphones at any given price, much less to say a $700 pair that has no need for external amplification. Vocals just seem so true to source. They can be extraordinarily wide or extremely intimate, just depending on the recording and the vibe of the music itself. And it's just a very, very nice experience, again, for the under $1,000 mark. This is a really, really high quality pair of headphones. I do think that turning on the adaptive sound profile here can bring a little bit more airiness, a little bit more emphasis, especially on female vocals, at least for my sound profile. Of course, yours is going to vary. Definitely, regardless, with the Bluetooth or on DAC mode, very nice. I do, again, like the sound profile more on the Bluetooth, and I feel like this almost is compensating for the lack of the high quality codecs that the iPhone just unfortunately is unable to do on any headphone, and that's not Focal or Name's fault. During my time with the Bathys, I feel like the music gods blessed us from above with absolutely stunning and amazing albums coming out. My favorite of which is definitely the new Poppy album, Negative Spaces. The title track, Crystallize, Push Go. There's just every song on this beautiful album is honestly a banger. And while it does draw a huge inspiration from mid-2000s, early 2000s rock and metal, there are still a lot of dance pop inspirations and just all sorts of different genres. And if you're anyone who likes that early 2000s or likes the more metalcore scene or even things like The Weeknd, there are tracks on this album that are right up your alley. It's a accumulation of like Hilary Duff, Avril Lavigne, Slipknot, Malevolence, The Weeknd. I don't know what to say. I love this album and you should give it a listen. And we had the new Linkin Park album come out, which I was honestly dreading because I didn't know how this was going to turn out, and it turned out pretty good. I won't say that it's the most spectacular or amazing or beautiful album I've ever listened to, but there are quite a few tracks on there that I did thoroughly enjoy, and I think that as a Linkin Park fan, this is about as best as we can hope for it with a Linkin Park that doesn't have Chester in it. And then just re-listening to the Charlie XCX Brat album in whatever iteration that you want to listen to, just a very punchy, very melodic, just brings out really nice, beautiful tones in Charlie's range of vocals, whether they are more natural or more processed. And yeah, just really enjoyable. Treble is sharp and sparkly. I do feel like this is the downside to the sound profile for me. There were times where, especially with the DAC mode enabled, I felt like that it could be a little bit too much. And then on the flip side of that, on Bluetooth mode, there were some times where just like the compression would be a little funky and cause some sort of distortion on some of these more upper frequencies, but nothing overtly damaging to the overall enjoyment of the music either way. And again, if I was purely listening to music, I would definitely try to make sure that I could listen to on a wired connection in order to get the most out of that, which the active noise canceling still works when you're wired. So that absolute isolation from the outside world, regardless of where you are, is also possible with the wired connection that you want for the high quality experience. I think Focal really hit it out of the park with this headphone. This is their really first attempt at a truly wireless noise canceling headphone, and it's an amazing product. Again, it's expensive. It's $700. That is a stark premium over more mainstream manufacturers' offerings again. But I think there is a Cyber Monday deal for this where it is available for 10% off. So right around that $600 mark, which kind of brings it more in line with the Apple AirPod Maxes, which again, for that price, I would say these are the go-tos. The only exception to that is if you're going to use these extensively to work out or in other kind of watery areas, because you can't put these in water, and I wouldn't sweat immensely in these either. These really are more made so for in the office, for the commute, in the airport, on the plane, you know, situations like that, and not so much running a marathon. These are really stellar, and honestly, as pure hi-fi headphones, you'd have to spend at least $1,500, maybe even $2,000 to get this level of sound quality. So I'm just so shocked that Focal can deliver this in this sub 1,000 package. I think that's gonna do it for me. This is my go-to wireless headphone. There's no wireless headphone that I have heard thus far that can even come close to this. So kudos to Focal. Thanks to Focal again for sending these to me for the review. If you like this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Check the links below in the description, including those Cyber Monday deals for the Bathys, and I'll see you in the next one.